Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, you are all a tough act to follow, for sure. I mean, I'm very humbled by what I was listening to, and I'm inspired for sure. I will say one thing before I get going. I'm not a chaplain. I am the Colonel Commandant for the Royal Canadian Chaplain Service. But recently, I was at a what we call a depart with dignity. And a depart with dignity is when a chaplain or a padre, as we call them, they retire from the Canadian Armed Forces. And what happens there is that people say very nice things about them, and or they kibitz with them a little bit. But then at the very end, that chaplain gets to say a few words. And on your topic today, it's very relevant because this chaplain has been a chaplain for quite a while, has traveled from coast to coast to coast, and has been posted and has traveled elsewhere. And he said to us what he's learned in all of his travels is that if we could follow and one word, and that was respect. He said if we could learn to respect each other, he said peace would be something that would happen very, very quickly. And you could analyze that word respect in many, many ways. And when I was sitting listening to all that everybody was saying, certainly those are all elements of it. But if when you first meet somebody, you respect them unconditionally, that would be a pretty wonderful thing. And that's what we all try to do. I guess you want to know a little bit about me. On Labor Day in 1947 in London, Ontario, I was born. So you can figure out how old I am. My mother, who is not with us anymore, she passed at 95. She would remind me every Labor Day that it was a different kind of Labor Day for her, and that I was not an easy son. And she kept reminding me of that for as long as I was her son. So I'm from London, Ontario. I was born there, educated there. Came to Toronto when I was about 20 years of age. And I had a little bit of a connection with Richmond Hill at that time because in London, Ontario, I had a part-time job. I used to umpire baseball games. So in Richmond Hill, you used to have a very famous fastball team called the Richmond Hill Dines. And I would do umpiring behind home plate for the Richmond Hill Dines back in the day when I was 20 years old. So that kind of linked me a little bit to Richmond Hill. I had about 15 jobs in Toronto. It's very difficult to keep a job in Toronto because they're always trying to move from here to there, especially me. And I think it's probably because I don't play well with others, as I've been told in sandboxes, so I like to do my own thing. So that's why I had 15 different jobs. And the one I have now, I have my own company. So the only person I can't get along with is me. And now it's my son. But in 1973, I met a lovely lady called Marcia, and I took her out on a date, and I thought, whoa, she's pretty special. So the very next day, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And 47 years later, we are still married. So sometimes your instincts are pretty good. My journey in Toronto has been very interesting for me. Um, I've always tried to set goals and to also want to give back a lot to my community. I've served on different boards like the Toronto East General Hospital Board Foundation, the Easter Seal Board, the Good Neighbors Club. I've been the president of the Rotary Club of Toronto, so Hugh would understand what's involved in that kind of thing. And the Rotary Club of Toronto is the largest, at the time was the largest Rotary Club in the British Commonwealth. And so I went from post to post doing a lot of charitable work. And I'm currently, I've reduced a lot of the things that I'm doing down to two things. And I'm currently the chair of the Toronto branch for St. John Ambulance. And I am the current Colonel Commandant for the Royal Canadian Chaplain Service. And it's as a military person back when I was an honorary lieutenant colonel. And these are Queen's appointments that you get, whether you say an honorary colonel or a colonel commandant. The Queen gives you that appointment through the Governor General. I met a person by the name of Harry Pandey, and Harry Pandey went to the Vishnu Mandir Temple in Richmond Hill. And the Vishnu Mandir temple, for many of us, not necessarily the temple, but the statue of Gandhi was always a focus point. So you could always direct people from that particular statue. And you could do so from 1988 when David Peterson dedicated that statue when it was erected in 1988. So I met Dr. Dubé, who some of you may have heard of. He is larger than life. He turns 80 years old on the weekend. So, and he brought Hinduism to Canada, essentially. And all the temples and the that you see now in Canada, it sort of all started in Richmond Hill with Dr. Dubé, many of them. And when events like Diwali and other important Hindu events happen, he's called to Ottawa. He's met the Queen several times, or a few times. So he's a very important person in the Hindu world. So I met him at a, I guess you'd call it a house party, and never thought anything more about it. I was in my uniform, and I get a call the next day from Dr. Dubé asking if I would meet him at the statue in Richmond Hill. So I said, okay, because he's a very difficult fellow to say no to, if those of you who know him. So I met with him, and the statue at the time was there, and there were benches around the statue. And so we sat on the bench, and as we started talking, now the Yonge Street is a very noisy street. And as we started talking to each other, it was quiet. I could hear birds chirping, and it was a little freaky to begin with, but nevertheless, I guess I was so absorbed in the conversation with Dr. Dubé that that all of that other noise kind of left us. And he asked if I would consider building a park to support the statue to Gandhi. And as we talked about it, we decided that, you know, the theme had to be peace. And the theme had to be universal peace. And it couldn't just be a Hindu thing. It had to be a place where anybody could go at any time to find peace in their life if they wanted to, or to find a quiet spot, or to go to a place where when there's a tragedy in their life, where can I go to find a little bit of comfort? And so that was the whole thought behind it, as well as in the temple, there was a wall, and the wall had 186 names on it, which were the names of those that had been killed in Afghanistan. And he wanted a monument to the fallen soldier. So the monument to the fallen soldier happened soon after, and that's the one that you see in the park today. And that monument to the fallen soldier is now a national heritage monument. It has a number, and it's recognized by the Government of Canada as a national monument. We're hoping that when the park is finished, and we hope that that is going to be in a year to a year and a half, that we can work with the town of Richmond Hill and perhaps even get the little parkette designated as a national historic site. But one never knows. So the thought was, let's build things and put things there that celebrate either how peace happened or people of peace. And of course, with the statue of the fallen soldier, our freedom was fought for, and we live in a country that we're very proud of because it's a very peaceful country. In the Canadian Chaplain Service, we have a school up in CFB Borden. And in CFB Borden, we have pluralism courses where we teach about respect for other faith groups. We have padres of all different faith groups that represent us across Canada and around the world. And when you visit that school, it's a delight, and it would be, I don't know if I can organize that, but it would be nice to sort of, when it's up and running again, just to see the different people and how they just work together. And we've had people come from across the world to go to the school, and part of the training of the school is to come to the Vishnu Mandir temple to see the temple and experience Hinduism, but also to visit the park. And one time we had people from 7 or 8 different countries represented that came to the temple and visited the park in Richmond Hill. And the park in Richmond Hill has been visited by prime ministers. It has been visited by premiers, many, many politicians, the top ranking soldiers of the day, many distinguished people in that park. I can remember when Nelson Mandela passed, and Dr. Dubé said, this was a very famous man. We have to have some recognition in the park for Nelson Mandela. So we put a modest monument there to Nelson Mandela. And we asked the consul from South Africa if she would come and dedicate that particular monument to Nelson Mandela. And she came, and it was in, if you remember, or you may not remember, he passed in the wintertime. So there was snow on the ground, and we trudged through the snow to this monument that we had created. And she said to me, Colonel, can I put my hands on the monument? And I said, of course you can. I mean, and then she put her hands on, and she fell to her knees. And people were going to rush, and I just put my hands and said, nope, that's not, there's something happening here. I don't know what it is, but let's just be patient. And then after about 5 minutes, she got up and she said, thank you for your gift. And I was dumbfounded. I said, I appreciate you thanking me, but I have no concept of why you're thanking me. She says, well, back home in South Africa, she says, the rock that you have written on, it looks exactly like the stones in my village. And she says, we don't have closure until we put our hands on the stone. And she said, you allowed me to go home. Wow, if I didn't believe that the Peace Park was not something special before, I certainly realized it was something special now. That's one story. We have in front of that a little plaque written by a young girl from grade 6 in Richmond Hill, where we didn't edit one word, and she wrote about the importance of the poppy and wearing it. And if you get a chance to read it, you will be moved incredibly. We have in the park an Inukchuk, which everybody knows about what an Inukchuk is. And so that's very Canadian. And so my hope is, and I'm conscious of the time, my hope is that when the park is done, and even if it isn't done, that perhaps Marge, who there's another person that is very difficult to say no to. You know, really the best way to do it is if you see your name on the phone, you just don't answer it because you know you're in trouble if you do. But perhaps Marge can organize a little get together, and you can visit the park, and I can take you around the park and introduce you to the different aspects of the park. And then perhaps we can go inside the temple if you've never been to the temple, and I could take you for a tour of the museum and so on. And I think that would be a lot of fun to do. The park is a very special place, and we celebrate those people who have represented peace in the past, but also we have at the very end, we have a monument with a child on a swing. And the children are the ones that are our future. They're the ones that and it's very right now a lot of people are talking about, you know, you're not born to hate, you have to learn to hate. You know, children are born with not a worry in the world, and that's the truth, and that's our future. And if we take care of our children and we educate them properly, and we treat everybody with respect, then peace is something that is possible in our time. So we focus a lot on that particular monument because it's a focal point in our park. So you know, the park has still a little bit to go. Of course, with that new beautification process entering Richmond Hill, we don't have a front yet because we had to take down everything. But when that's finished, we can finish the park. We have 3 things left to do. We have to finish the front, which means we put a fence or something there that'll go along with everything. We are working currently with the Mississaugas of the New Credit to come up with something that is very symbolic for our First Nations people. And I'm working right now on a laser light program that would go on every evening at around 9:30 whilst the weather is good, and it would be a celebration of Canada and the great country that we live in. So that's the Peace Park. And in terms of my role as the Colonel Commandant of the Royal Canadian Chaplain Service, if one wants to be humbled, just represent almost 400 members of different faith groups, and all the things that they have to know, what they have to absorb, what they have to teach, the anticipation that they have to have for some problems that occur, and on and on and on. It's just an honor and a privilege, and I'm the one that seems to benefit. I'm supposed to be sharing, and technically I'm the father of the service, but I can tell you, just like today, when I was listening to everyone sharing what they felt about peace, I'm the one that was being blessed. I'm the one that was receiving, and I thank you for that, because it was a real privilege to listen to that. So I think it's 10:21, and if you want, I can stop talking, and if you want to ask me some questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any.